Okay, okay, lesson 72. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on his plan, and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego. You see, when one is in, what are the attributes of the ego? It can be punishing, judgmental, tries to get revenge, sees everything as a threat and as another person that could threaten its own plan. So God is assigned all the attributes which are actually the ego's attributes. You see, so in society generally, in the collective, God is seen as punishing, who's going to get even with you, strike you with lightning, judge you for being a sinner, all of these things. So that's actually, because one is identified with the ego, the separate ego, it then creates this distorted reality of how it perceives and projects onto things, especially God. So while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God, and then it goes on, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God. So for me, the ego, how does the ego take on the attributes of God? Well, one of the reasons I think for myself, as coming from an addiction background, is that it likes to project that by control or by getting or doing something or changing something, it will find, it's basically projecting a false god. Like food could be a false god, or a person could be a false god, and so it creates this pseudo god reality, but does not want to surrender itself then to get to the truth of the real God. So the ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish, for it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with the body, keeping it separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. So we've got a fair bit there. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. Because, the God, or being in the limitless, eternal, non-dual state, is the biggest threat to the ego. The ego really wants to be, to put it in my terms, it would be like a little separate thing that is dictating how the world should be all the time. I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow, and it's going to be sunny today and forevermore. So it's like, but it wants to be in separation and be giving instructions as to what the universe should be like, you see. So in that sense, it's like it wants to replace God, you see. It's not because to get to God you have to surrender the ego. So
can I interrupt with an idea? I'm
sure.
not sure. I have this idea, maybe just a belief in itself, is almost like that when we are seeking or desiring of abundance, happiness, joy, fulfillment, all these higher things, we are actually in line with God's will. And where the ego comes in is where the ego is trying to decide the best path to get there. And so it's like, our ego thinks that happiness is a sports car and a house in the countryside, whereas God's plan might be something like a house at the seaside and an old Robin Reliant, Reliant Robin or something like that. And because we are constantly trying to work out, well, this is what we want, this is what's going to make me happy, this is what's going to make me feel good, and this is the path that I've got to follow to get there. Then we're in ego. But when we actually get out of the way of the ego, that abundance and joy and fulfillment and health and all those things aren't actually out of sync with God's plan anyway.
No, they're not. They're not.
It's just our way of trying to get there.
Yeah. It's the individual. I mean, it's that is correct. But the states are of the nature happiness. the internal state is of the nature of happiness. And it also so happens that as you let go of more, that which unfolds out of the non-dual state is usually in accordance with that state, you see. However, in the ego, it's like the objects create the happiness, but actually happiness is the non-dual state, and things tend to populate around it in accordance with God's will. But there's levels of consciousness. So as you let things go, you can be, at a certain level, you do tend to materialize everything that you wanted in a lower level. So, or it could be like, you know, or it could change a bit. So it could be a house in the country, by the seaside, with a nice rural community. But as you get, as you go to those higher states, you recognize that the state is of itself happiness, you see. The forms are not really, I mean, they also tend to align with that.
More like aren't they more like a reflection of your state?
Yes, yeah.
It's like in that state, you will have those manifestations. That's not your goal, but it just will happen spontaneously.
Yes, yeah. You see, the ego wants the things to, you know, I'm happy because I've got a donut, you see. Donut on table, and it's like, so the donut means I'm happy, and if I have an endless supply of donuts, then I'll be happy forever. And actually in those states, you know, you might have a donut, but, you know, and you happily eat the donut, but the donut is not giving you the happiness. The happiness is the state, you see, and at the higher levels. And things happen around that state, as you say, but also they're equally enjoyed, but the things do not give the enjoyment, you know. I mean, you know, an enlightened teacher is probably not going to be, you know, I don't know, working as a criminal, you know, because you know, the alignment is with the level of consciousness. So yes, you know, all those things tend to reflect, but as you go higher, like the ego's, in the lower levels of the ego, is fascinated with the objects giving the happiness, and getting the objects to give the happiness. Like, if I had a full head of hair, I could be happy and peaceful right now. But until I get a full head of hair, then I cannot be happy. But actually, you can get to a state where you are happy whether you have a full head of hair or not. And it might happen once you're happy that you get a full head of hair, or not. But it doesn't really affect the state. And those things might happen as well. But,
can you really separate it then in a way? I mean, wouldn't it almost automatically happen that if you are really happy in a good state, then whatever physical manifestation you would want somehow happen?
Yeah.
Even if it's not your aim, it will still happen because it's just matched somehow.
Well, you know, I think we're getting into God's will of the unfolding, you see. When the individual dissipates, when there's no individual there, then it doesn't really matter, you know, whether you have a full head or you don't have. It may happen that does happen, it may happen that's not.
If that is your view of happiness, it might happen, because for you that might happen. For somebody else, something else could happen. It's more like if you are like in a happy state, whatever you see as happy would happen to you, and for someone else, something else would happen.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain level that tends to happen, but at a certain level there is no you desiring anything one way or the other.
What is the maybe it's a stupid question again, but I still have this question. What is the purpose of individuals? I mean, where are the individuals? It seems like they have no purpose, but there are individuals. There must be some purpose of having.
Well, you know, I like, you know, the course is removing all the blocks to the truth, you see, and the individual is the blocks to realizing the truth.
So why are the individuals then?
My take is that there is it's like we become accustomed to the idea of God, or whatever word you want to use, the universe, source, as being infinite and fixed. And I think it's probably more to the truth that God is infinite but still growing, expanding into more infinite. And we are projections of God having a human experience. Most of us have heard that soundbite, and we're spiritual creatures having a human experience. But I think that is very, very true, because in our interactions, in our living in the ego, in the bumping against each other we do as we go through life, that is almost transmitting a message back to our source.
It's like God exploring something.
We all evolve through our experiences. We all learn as we go, and we all make mistakes, and we have things that we interpret mistakes, and we have interactions, relationships, difficulties, and through all those experiences we grow. Now, if we are spiritual beings growing through our experience, that information has to be going back to the source.
But that still means that there is some kind of value of the individual in a way, because that is God's way of exploring something.
If you want to take the allegory that God created everybody in God's image, then that you could say, well, the ego was created too, and there was a purpose to that. And if, although it doesn't feel helpful, every time we have an ego attack, let's call it, it just gives us more desire, more need, more wanting to move further and forward through that. And so it could be a necessary part of the whole.
But that's still a different way of looking at it. I kind of like that. I'm more, but maybe it's my ego who likes it. But I mean, it's something about that, because for me, it's like there is still these perceived egos that are existing somehow in the experience.
There is a school of thought or a way of thinking and a way of feeling where people believe that the ego is almost like the devil and has to be got rid of.
Yeah, exactly. And
maybe that isn't true. Maybe the truth is that the ego is a necessary part of us that helps us in our growth and our journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is. I mean, this is how I currently see it. There's different levels of consciousness, and at each level of consciousness, there's a different level of identification with separation, and this world being real as a separate self in a world full of other separate selves. But as I sort of see it, in the eternal state there is no time. In the eternal state there is no separation. In fact, I would say, from my own experience, in the eternal state there is no form and there is no contrast, even at the higher levels. So it was like, it's just a flip. Right now in this room, for everyone, there can be a flip. If one could totally let go of identification, to the extent one could totally let go of identification with form, right now in this moment, either you could be experiencing just pure white light and love of an infinite nature, and it's here right now. As soon as there's a mild bit of identification, there's what I call the witnessing state, the non-dual witnessing state, or you could say the sky state, where actually there is no such thing as separation. There isn't any separation. It's just like everything is happening in the oneness.
But don't you think God wants to experience this because it exists? There must be some purpose for this.
Well, I would frame it more like this, because that's more of an ego question. More, it's like the level of identification is a different experiencing. You see, so there's either there is no world. It's just pure light and love in the infinite source, or there is, and if there's a touch of identification, we have what I call the enlightened teachers. The enlightened teachers, well, let's put it this way: there is no such, for them, there is no such thing as separation being experienced. So I'm talking in an oxymoron, because there is no personal them. But it's like it would be called things like oneness or the limitless state, with no hint of a person or an identity or in that at all. It's just the unfolding of creation is being witnessed. There's no individual in there at all, you see. And only the other individuals are saying you're an individual because I can see a body, but there is no individual there. You see, so that's the next level down. Then you have like the states of high love and ecstasy as an individual. You see, so those are like, I feel ecstasy, I feel happiness, but there's a me as an individual taking ownership. So that's even more identification with the ego. And then if the ego is more identified with the body and its thoughts in separation, then you start to go into the more contracted states of like fear or body aches and pains. So it's like, I would say that the questions of the why, I mean, you can answer the questions of the why, but it's more productive. You see, if you transcend your ego and surrender, it's like the Holy Spirit recontextualizes what was the purpose of the lower levels. So it's less productive to be it's okay to be at an lower level and ask lots of why this, why that, but it's more...
But what about animals? Because I get really... yeah, but I mean, I don't often... I'm not listening to the radio, I'm not watching television, but then sometimes I watch these nature programs, you know, and then a friend of mine showed me recently this, I don't know if you've seen it, it's this fish.
Yeah.
You've seen it?
No.
No, it's just completely incredible. There's this little fish, and he swims around, moving his fins like this, and he's making this perfect mandala. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Mandala.
Yeah, it's like he's making in the sand, and he doesn't even have a clue what he's doing. He's just making this perfect shape. It's like a mandala with all his patterns like this, and he's just swimming and moving his fins. He's flicking his fins, and that makes the sand move. So it kind of makes a pattern in the sand.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect circle. So
Yeah.
you've seen it, like perfect circle with different patterns like this. And when you see this, you just think, shit, I mean, what is moving this? I mean, something is moving this fish, is making this pattern, and the same, whatever it is moving us, of course, but if we think our mind is doing it, but obviously, I mean, for me, every time I see something like that, or even these birds that fly information, for example, you think, I mean, what is... There's something there, even if you say these realities, there's something even the animals, like when you see this, that was the most amazing thing I ever
I
see.
think the thing with animals, the beasts in general, the way that humans are separated from animals is in, I suppose, on a very simple way, is to say that we have an element of free will that other creatures don't have. And it's like, while animals are pretty much sentient and they are self-aware and they do feel, or they can suffer, or they can have, they don't hold on to their issues in the way that humans do. They don't have...
No, but I mean, for example, this fish is just moved by something. It has no idea what it's doing in a way. But it was like a perfect... It's a perfect... Do you see, like, there's something that is God. For me, it's like God. God is moving. God is making this... Yeah, God is making this mandala through this fish. In the same way as God is making whatever he's making through me.
Well, yes. I mean, there's the levels of God manifest. There's levels of God unmanifest.
I don't know if you do any creativity at all. I mean, most people, I think, have got some levels of creativity. But if I do any creativity, it's something like I'm designing, I'm doing photography.
I used to do a lot of
When I'm in that zone, it's almost a meditative state.
It just comes through.
It just comes through.
I know what you mean, absolutely.
Now, that's why I think you can find as much wisdom in Star Wars and Harry Potter as you can in the Bible.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And the animals, when they're doing stuff like that, they're coming from their own inspiration. They're not held up by their ego.
But that's fascinating. When I see it, it makes me feel much better, actually. When I see it, I just think, wow. It makes me feel more relaxed in a way, because I feel like normally I'm just thinking, what should I do? You know, you try to figure everything out, you try to control things. I do, at least. I feel like everything is on me, I have to do the right thing, everything. But then when you see a fish doing this...
It's like, if I wanted to create a big mandala like that, I'd be thinking...
You couldn't give it...
What kind of... I'd be thinking, that angle there, and I'd take the compass, and I'd be thinking out the process, and I'd be doing a whole shitload of maths. And the fish doesn't need the maths.
It just does it.
So you need to be a fish, okay? Forget telling what is God and what is this universe and why is this happening. Be a fish.
Yeah. But the thing is, the fish got themselves out of the way, really.
Yes.
Same way
Yeah, when you see this, that was the most
we have to
amazing
get
thing.
ourselves out of the way.
Yeah.
That's our inspiration. happens. You need to get yourself out of the way, and then it's going to bring something else.
You have to see this, you have to check it out on YouTube. You have to watch it, actually.
The only thing about anxiety is the feelings.
What do you say? In a way, it's a concentration, really. Like what we're supposed to do.
He's making this little fish.
The mind force readers that replicate everywhere.
I mean, one of the ones that we all know about is the whirling dervishes.
Yeah.
The Sufis that can dance with endless energy in circles. I mean, and they say that the universe is dancing them. There is no individual there. Say, God, how can I dance right now? And what do those people think of me? And actually, if there's no ego there, then divinity. There's no separate there. So this group is about becoming a fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's become fish. But even when you say let's become fish, when
fish
you are
do not
crazy,
ask
but also when you're crazy, I use them. No, I don't do it anymore. But when you are crazy,
Call it, Sabbir.
The fish group.
Be a fish.
I'll use it for one person anyway. Be a fish. Do fish ask why questions?
you have to watch it. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. I see if I can find it. I will send a link to everyone. Now,
Into a fish day.
it is amazing, actually. I see if I can find. I can send you a link. I put it up on the meetup page. See if I can find. I don't know.
If we let you go, then you'll be the fish in the group.
But it's really interesting to
You have
watch.
to let the individual go. It's only after the individual is gone that you can be a fish. You see, let creation go through you. Those are the enlightened teachers. You see, they're fish.
They are fishes.
The enlightened teachers are fish because they have let go. The enlightened teachers are it's on camera.
Be careful what you say.
I don't know. No, they have to watch the whole video. If I'm quoted out of context, you won't get it. My enemies might take a clip. If my enemies take a clip from just that bit, they have to listen to the whole conversation.
Don't tell. We're talking about this guy. That's about light and big to being a fish.
As I get enemies, that'll be.
It's that guy who thinks that there's a lizard.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, David Icke is there's alien lizards taking over all the political
We've got a
class.
family of shapeshifters.
What is that?
In some belief systems, it could be true.
That is, yeah. I think once you explore spirituality, that's one of the, you've got the, that is totally out of the, like every politician is a lizard man, alien lizard.
Yeah, maybe.
I did actually go. I did go to one of those groups, and this guy really believed it. That these guys were all. There was some kind of conspiracy, and there was all these lizard people, alien lizard people, taking over. So that you get all kinds. But yeah, being danced by the universe.
Yeah.
Let the universe dance. In fact, Hawkins tries to describe for the intellect. There's different attractive fields as you go up in the levels of consciousness. Like all the saints are being orchestrated by the same level of consciousness. They have the same type of thoughts. They've let go enough identification. Miracles tend to happen around them. They tend to be unconditionally loving. The enlightened teachers are also, you could say, on another attractive field. Then you have the addicts. The addicts are all on the same tuning vibration. Addicts all have the same type of thoughts. There's not enough donuts. When can I get the next donut? You see? So they're all on. So it's like in the world. It seems, depending on what level of consciousness you're at, you see the world totally different. And like if you identify with the body and the ego, then everyone is separate in this place because you're separate. See, if there's no identification with separation, then there is no separation in this room, and then if someone else in separation says, well, you're in separation, that doesn't make, there could be a compassion for that, but one isn't in separation, it has a limit, in relation to that. So everyone tends to project their own level of consciousness out into the room. if and I would say from my own thing, you know, it's like right now there is, if you let go of all identification with the ego, there's just, I would say, there's just pure light, love, and infinite power. There is not even any experiencing of the world. If there's a tiny bit, a touch of experiencing, then there's like limitless observing without any individuality. If there's a bit more identification, and everyone can be, you know, a bit more identification, then one is firmly a body thinking. And a bit more identification, then one is like suicidal or wanting to top oneself or whatever. So it's like, I mean, and all of that, you know, because in truth there is no time and there is no separation. So as you let go, there is not even any perception or movement in the ultimate. So as you start to identify, different worlds seem to be perceived, you see. But actually all of that, even the white light, there is here right now, and there actually is no time and there is nothing happening. But then as you identify there is something happening, there is a real world, and there is a bit more identification, and there is separation, and yet all of this is so for me it's like right now, for every individual or for myself, it's like being on a ruler, you know, no identification, actually nothing is actually happening right now. There is no time, there is no people, nothing ever happened, you see, and that's like in the infinite light and power. And then actually a tiny bit, then you're in what's classically called the enlightened states. It's like, it's the unfolding of oneness, and there is no separation. It's just the isness of now is just what it is. And then if you identify a bit more with the ego, then there's a me in relationship to other events, you see. It's all actually here now, but there's just each, you know, and for those who are highly identified, you know, they have a kind of, you know, the addicts have a kind of a shared similar experience. The saints have a similar shared experience, the enlightened. And then those who are not here, well, it doesn't make sense because you can't use languaging to describe that, the state, which is the state prior to manifestation, the state prior. But I would say, you know, from my own experience, which doesn't make sense, so you have to let go of the languaging, it's just infinite light and power is the prior state. And then as you drop into identification, you get into these lower states of consciousness.
But don't that something we learn from being in the manifest, experiencing reality in this manifest way then?
Well, that's what it seems like. I mean, it seems like the individual is learning lessons and is letting go. But I'd say, you know, if the truth is true, then actually everything in the illusion is illusion. And so it's an illusory...
Learning is also an illusion.
Learning is illusion. So it's like a separate self is learning how to come out of illusion. But actually, truth is truth. So while there was a separate self...
So it's no learning, really. It's just
it's more,
realization of...
Yeah,
truth.
so it's like, it seems to be an unlearning or an unidentification.
Just waking up and...
Yes, waking up is
waking up, yeah.
a waking up to the truth.
It's not really learning, it's more waking up. It's like when you're dreaming at night and then you wake up,
Yeah.
and then you just see it.
Yeah, that's-
you don't learn. You can say, did you learn something? No, you just woke up and then you see, okay, I was dreaming.
Yeah, you
It's
see,
not really a learning.
that's right. You see that you were dreaming that
Yeah.
you were a separate individual in
You wouldn't
separation.
call it a learning, it's more a wake.
It's a waking up. It's a waking up. It's a waking up. So actually, this world of separate people, is that the real? That's the unreal. That's the shared illusion of the dreaming state. So actually, as you let go of that identification, you start to wake up to higher levels of truth until you get to the highest truth. So yeah, it's a, or you could say it's a surrendering of what one thought as an individual one was. Well, I like to use the word identification. As you release all identification, then you wake up to the truth.
But that's why sometimes I feel it's a bit
Oh.
contradictory when, for example, here we say, oh, I cancel my belief in this or that, or I kind of, that seems still to be on a level where you kind of want to get away. Because if you say, I cancel my belief in a certain illness, or I cancel my belief in colds, whatever, that you're saying that because you don't like this certain thing and you want to, by cancelling your belief, you want to get away from it. And if you're on the highest level, all of that doesn't really matter. If
No.
you have a cold, if you don't have a cold, it doesn't even matter because that's not the truth.
That's-
So I mean, that's very contradictory to me, you know.
Oh, everything we do is and there's different levels that are being talked at endlessly. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
you know, I don't say to everyone, you're not a body, you're not your thoughts, and forget it. You know, it's like,
Okay, end of session.
well, it would be that quick. Be the fish, that's it. Let the fish now.
No point in having a group.
There is no group anyway. There is no group.
Yes, I mean, the group is full of, you know, full of paradoxes because everyone's at a different level. So yeah.
Am I going to have a call?
Yeah. Okay, so I had a question about cancelling things like tiredness and what would happen afterwards. And if you were in essentially an enlightened or non-dual state, it's a bit wonky. If you were, if you were in a non-dual or enlightened state, that you'd feel, what it would mean is that you would still feel tired in that state, but it wouldn't affect you. Okay, so you can get it from the phraseology of what he's saying. See, the enlightened state, there is no you, there is no me, there is no person. So he still hasn't got the thing of like the enlightened state, the limitless, the eternal state. There is no me. There is no. So it's like he's thinking. This person is visualizing that in the enlightened state, there's still a me that can feel tired, but it's not being affected. But, you know, he's still got a me in there, you see. So he still has to let go of the me to be in the eternal state. How it works, as I understand it from the enlightened teachers, is that one is the, to frame it not accurately, it's like one is the light, eternal expansiveness or limitlessness that is here in the now, you know, and it's witness that things are happening within that, but those things that happen within it, like people talking or things that are happening within the state, are not identified personally, and they don't have any effect on that limitless state. So there is no person, there is no limited person in the limitless state that's saying I'm a tired limitless person, but I'm not being affected because I'm in the limitless state. It doesn't make sense. You see, you're either in the limitless state and there is no person, or you can make up some kind of gobbledygook that me person in limitless state, but also feeling tired and feeling limits, which of course is not, you know, it just doesn't make sense. It's gobbledygook. So now, I mean, so what happens is, like, when one is in the limitless state, you know, the enlightened teachers, they also, it's not like they aren't the body. There is no person there. It's witnessed that sometimes the body, there are different states of consciousness. Like sometimes there is like the limitless experiencing of what is in a kind of almost like a conscious state. So there is like, you know, there is a limitless witnessing of the unfolding of creation as it is, as an isness, but there's no personality in there. And then at a certain point, it's like the wire to the senses is gone. So that's the sleep, which is also a non-dual state. And then again, it seems like the senses are there, but it's being witnessed without any sense of person, because the person is like a sense of like, I'm stuck in this little limited body, and I'm now I'm in separation to the whole world, and things in the world can now affect me or not affect me because I'm in a limited state. Like in a limited state, even tiredness is an identification with a limit. you know, and if you unhook from that identification with limit, then you're in the limitless state. So if the person said, look, I'm in enlightenment, but I feel tired, that can't be right, because he's identified as a physical body with limited energy so he's not in the limitless state, you see. So he needs to unhook, you know, what's observing the tiredness. Okay. All right, hold on. Okay. All right.
I want to get to.
Okay. We're on. We're on.
Right.
If it's possible, you can
Okay.
go for it.
Well,
Before, really.
well, yes, that's right. See, the thing is, you see, the more you let go, the more the individualized identity disappears. You know, so in ego, there's a me. Like when I'm in ego, there's a me. It'd be great to win the lottery right now. It'd be great, you know, if I was 20 years old, and all kinds of things. Now, as you let go of the belief systems, the ego identity dissolves. And as the ego identity dissolves, it gets replaced. You see, all these projections are coming out of the one source, and they create the illusion of loads of separated identities seeming to be in separation to each other. So it's the one source that projects the whole illusion. However, as the separate identity dissolves through surrendering beliefs or cancelling beliefs, then one is actually becoming one with God, if you could say symbolically, with God's will. So it's like if it's the will of the ultimate source, the creator of the whole, all the projections in the illusion and the seeming separation, then that will be it. So now, you know, the siddhis, the siddhis are in classical Indian literature are, you know, all these people who do these advanced spiritual work. The siddhis are like, you know, being in two places at the same time, walking on water. All of these things are phenomena that's classically denoted in ancient Indian literature about the miracles that happen when enough of the separate self or the personhood has dissolved. But then there's no more, you see, once you get there, these miracles are a conduit of the source. There is no individual left there saying to the source, oh, by the way, now that I'm now in the limitless, can I win the lottery? Can I win the lottery now? Because that thing has already disappeared that would have that individuated wish. So, you see, as you're letting go, then you actually become one with the Creator, you see. So, like you could say, like Christ or Buddha, they're individuated me who goes, you know, can I have my hair back? And can I have my hair back? And can I win the lottery? And can I get a Ferrari, a red Ferrari? So it's like, you know, now you're in. There is only God's will now. The individual is gone, deleted. So it seems like to all the other little individuals who are being projected, still not yet in oneness, they sort of see like these miracles happening. It's like that is a person choosing and telling God what miracle they want to do as an individual person, you see. But actually the greater miracles happen with the lack of the person. So there is no individual telling God, okay, I want my hair back now, because there is now there are levels of no, but on another note, there are levels of consciousness. So when you've let enough beliefs go, there's still a bit of an individual there, and when that bit of an individual, because they're now at such an elevated level where they've cut out enough of the crap. You know, if that individual thinks, I want to win the lottery, they do. Because it's like they've cut out so much of the junk that's in the way that they can't really manifest things as an individual. So it's like, you know, as you're doing the spiritual work, you know, sometimes you do actually, you have thoughts, and they materialize straight away. It's like almost like the individual can do it. But then if you want to get to the next level up, you just have to totally delete all aspects of an individual will telling the bigger will what it wants. And then the greater miracles occur when there's actually the total absence of all idea of a separate self dictating to the universal, the limitless self, what needs to happen. So then everything happens as a chord of divine will, or the grace, or the unfolding oneness. There's no separation. So it's a paradox, you know, like the law of attraction and all of this stuff is so glamorous to the individual ego. You know, if I do this metaphysical stuff, you know, I can get a Ferrari, I can do all this stuff, and it wants to hijack it as an individual who's going to suddenly look. I just thought of a Ferrari, and I've got a Ferrari outside, and he wants to tell other under individuators as an individual that it can perform these miracles.
I want to say something here. I just jumped in here.
It's on camera. It's on camera, yeah. It's okay.
Okay, okay, can we have camera? Yeah, because I was just listening to Muji recently, and the girl was asking him, she had this Kundalini experience. She said, oh, I had this wonderful experience, and she didn't really aim for it at all, it just happened to her spontaneously. She said, oh, I had this, and I just got inspired. She didn't know anything about Muji a few days before she went to this retreat, and she like, just got guided to go here, and he was very almost stir, like, and then he says, at one point she asks him, have you experienced anything like this? And he says, oh my dear. I was almost surprised actually, because from his reaction as he talked, almost as if it affected him, you know. I would think he would be above, even be affected by that. He'd be like, oh my dear, that's child's play, he says. Almost as if his ego was affected by it. And I was actually surprised, actually, of his response. He said, oh, that's child's play. What we're talking about here is what he wanted to get at was that it was still an experience. Of course, her experience of the Kundalini was still an experience, and he wants to get to beyond that. Is what is not an experience, what is always there, what is not an experience, what is not coming and going. So it's always been, it's very clear, it's always about that, always. So it's very, very simple in a way, and very, very consistent in his pointing, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was so surprised because actually it stayed with me, because I've been listening to him quite a lot recently, and I mean, I was just surprised at his reaction. It almost felt like it was a bit of ego coming out from him there. Oh my God, that's child's play. It's like of course I'm experienced that. Oh my God. So when you talk about this, I felt a little bit, it again made me think about that. You know?
No, it's a good point. I mean, if you go to all the enlightened teachers, yeah. Should I put the camera off?
No, you've answered my question. One, it is possible.
Yeah, everything's possible.
And then two, you have to let it go.
You have to let it go, yeah.
Yeah, but it is possible.
Yes.
And you have to let it go, because there's a Sufi story
Yes.
of a king who has to move from one court to another.
Yep.
And so he takes his servants with him and his retinue, and they all set off. I can't remember if they're on horses. I think they're on horses. So they set off, and all the servants are dropping by the wayside for one reason or another. It's an allegory, one of
Yes.
those allegory stories. And then it's just him and his most loyal servant left, going towards wherever they have to go. And one of his saddlebags falls off the horse, and it splits open, and it's all the king's jewels.
Yes.
All over the place, and the loyal servant stops and is picking up all the jewels, and the king's just riding off.
Mm-hmm.
So the king gets to where he's going, and there's no loyal servant.
Yes.
And the servant's going, well, you know, where are you? And the king says, I thought your love was for me.
Yes.
Not for you know, your love. You said you're a lawyer
Yeah.
to me, not to that.
Yes. Well, that's what Jesus said. Let everything go and follow me. You know, let everything go. And yes, you know, as you get to more advanced levels, what remains of the ego, you know, and actually it's a trap. You know, as you start to do spiritual work, all kinds of miracles happen around you. If any kind of personal ownership of the miracles occurs, then you know it can take you down in vibration. Also, at a certain level, it does happen actually in the high 500s. You know, you think things and you can easily manifest things. However, that can also lead to ego inflation as well, because actually you want to let go of all personal ownership and actually all personal identity to get to the larger miracles. And it's a paradox. The little ego wants to be the one who's like there at the last bit when all this awesome stuff is happening. But the most awesome stuff happening is when the little me's out of the way. So it's a bit of a paradox. But actually, you know, if you're in those states when the little me is gone, they're sublime. They're sublime states. And actually, it's the absence of the little me that is in the picture, which is actually why those states occur. So, so yes, you know, it's like, you know, and often with a lot of spiritual seekers, it's like, I want to do all this spiritual work so that I can manifest this. You know, when I've done all this spiritual work, I'm going to hold the belief that I've got a full head of hair, and actually, you know, that could happen along the way. As I still have an individual me, you know, as I let go of enough crap, I could like visualize my head full of hair, and it could happen. But actually, at a certain level, you even have to let that go as well. You see, to get into the non-dual state. Now, the thing with like people, you know, the thing with a lot of people get into kind of reactions with things that enlightened teachers do, like with Jesus. I mean, the famous one is he was angry in the tent with the gamblers. You see, and also there's another Indian saint, Nisargadatta, who used to smoke. You know, he used to be a chain smoker, and yet he was a teacher of enlightenment. And so it's very confusing. And actually.
And also some of these people, even Ramana Maharshi, he had cancer. I think he died.
Yeah, yeah.
What about that? That he don't have a deadly illness, something.
That's right. So actually, all of the enlightened teachers, if you watch them long enough, your ego comes in and goes, well, you know, you're teaching enlightenment, but you're smoking. You're teaching enlightenment, but you got angry at the gamblers. You know, or you showed a bit of ego there. The thing with the enlightened state to recognize now. There are people who purport to be enlightened and who are not. And when they are in ego, they are in ego. And they were in ego even when they're pretending to be in an enlightened state. I'll share the difference. The enlightened teachers, it's like there is still a remnant of what used to be the personality there, but there's no identification with it. Okay, so I'll try and explain that. It's like...
Yeah, because isn't there are still a person, so there will always be something that is a human person.
No,
Some kind of a residual
it's a residual,
personality.
but there's no identification with that.
No, but there will still be some kind of manifestation of
Yes,
that person.
yeah. It's not, you know, I mean, there is no person behind the person. I mean, there is no identification. It's like when one is in the limitless, these are just clouds in the room that seem to be happening the way that all the clouds, there's no ownership of this, just the unfolding of creation. But when there is ego, there is identification with the body and the thought stream, you see. So it becomes personal, you see. So when there's any identification with thoughts and body, then it contracts. And it's the person thinking and doing and reacting. In enlightenment, in the enlightened sage, the ones that stick in the body, there's still the state, the non-dual state is there, but there seems to be a thing that seems to react and talk, but there's no identification with it. So it's in a limitless state, and that there is no ownership of that being linked to what the state is. It's like it then becomes just like this body talking. There's no identification with it, so it's equally the same as everything that's spontaneously equally happening within the oneness that is unfolding in creation now. And there is no individual person ownership of anything. It's all a unity of unfolding phenomena which is being witnessed.
But what is the purpose then of individual beings? What is the purpose of... They're still individual beings somehow.
Well, that's the unfolding of God's will. You see, you could say some of the teachers leave their body, and some of them are actually not in their body, but something seems to carry on talking and speaking. But there's no individual there. You're only the other people who are in individualhood are looking at that.
Is it something? Is it like the goal or whatever? Is that there would no longer be an individual?
Well, there is no individual in the enlightened state. That is gone. Individual is due to identification.
A misinterpretation of reality, I mean.
Well,
if you experience yourself or anybody else as an individual, that is a misinterpretation.
Yes,
of
but you can only see individuality if you're an individual. Yes. In the oneness or in the enlightened state, there is no such thing.
So there is no point as such in being an individual or perceiving that reality.
Well, the point, I mean, my take on it is that it's a bit like this is a place to learn freedom, and anything that is being identified creates fear and separation. So, the blocks to the truth. So the truth is not in limit. The truth is not an individual. The truth is not a referencing of me in separation to other separates. That is not the truth. That is not the true state. As soon as you identify yourself as an individual, then you're in a world of individuals.
But what are the individuals then? Why is it even happening?
The why questions are not really the best question. The why questions are more the ego questions, because that's like...
So what is the better question then? Because it still, like, there seems to be individuals perceiving themselves as individuals.
The best question, I'll tell you the best question to ask is how can I be free? Rather than why does the world work? It's like, why is the plant green? Why is there suffering in the world? You see, but really, if one is... The true spiritual questions are always, how can I be free? How can I be free? You see, those questions are the other questions the ego lives on, you see. Like, let's talk about why the world is the way it is, why individuality exists. That can go on for days and years and months. If you're watching Muji actually says, like, don't ask me intellectual questions.
But actually it affected me, his reaction to that question she asked him. What would he say like that? It was almost like his ego was like, oh my God, my dear, of course I said, oh my God, I was so surprised.
Okay.
It was almost like
You might
his ego
have a
touched.
bit of ego left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You might have a bit of
like,
ego
oh my
left.
God, of course.
That's not really at that stage.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. I was actually very surprised. Oh my God, how can he talk like this?
No, I understand that. So, I mean, the thing with that is you get caught up in the person, but the pointings of the teachings are to see, like, okay, I got affected by that. So what is my I? What is your I right now that can be affected by that? Your thoughts were affected by that? Your body was affected by that? What is you?
For me?
Yeah.
When he said that, I think it was like suppose I'm looking for someone else to be, for me to see that something is possible, I want to maybe find someone I want to look up to, this person has reached this thing. So then when this person I think have reached something, then they seem to have a thought that, what? Then I feel like I'm getting insecure, because I hope that they would be for me a proof that this was possible. And then this person I thought had reached a certain freedom, or,
Yeah.
and then he showed some kind of reaction. And wow, how can he react this way if he that I lose my faith again somehow? And I thought he was.
So how do you experience yourself right now? Are you all these thoughts and these memories that you're recollecting? Is that what you are?
No,
Is this
not
you?
right now, no, not so much. Just when you were talking about this, it made me remember.
Okay, so can you let it go for now?
Yeah.
Can you be free now?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
remember.
okay, good. Stay. Okay, so thank you, Micah, for that question. Now, yeah, was that the question answered for you? Okay, and we had a quick.
Toss it up and then you've got to let it go.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd rather let mine go because I think, well, we're not going to have that much time, are we, for the rest of, and I don't feel it's
Oh,
urgent.
no, the
It's
question.
just a belief.
Yeah, exactly.
So we want.
And I've been cancelling beliefs, so some of it's been answered anyway.
Okay, all right. So that one's been answered. We've got. Okay, I think. Okay, so was there any other questions before we go on to the lesson of the day? No? Okay, get on to today's lesson.
So you're okay with your question?
Yes, fine, so.
Okay, all right. So we'll get on to today's